This is sex worker branding, building an intentional persona. Okay, so this is what we're going to be covering today as a little summary, is key terms and definitions. We'll be going through what a target audience persona is all about, why and how to do competitor analysis, what brand heart and positioning is all about, why it's important to have a brand personality and voice. We'll discuss naming and taglines. Now, a lot of you probably already have your names established, but it's always good food for thought. We'll talk about brand identity, why it's important to have a brand manual and what actually goes into a brand guide, what the difference between refreshing your brand and actually doing a full rebrand is, why you would want to do a refresh versus a rebrand, and then finally the top 10 tips. And finally, we'll open it up to a discussion. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, or this is your first webinar, or you have no idea who PS Group is, PS Group is a creative marketing agency. We're an ad agency, marketing agency. We are exclusively for sex workers, and the vast majority of people on our 20-person, 5-country team are current and retired sex workers. So we know what's going on. You know, these are all the services that we offer. We do help with branding and strategy, build websites, design. We do video editing now and Reddit management, Discord, all these things. Check out our website if you're curious. If not, check it out for the webinars. Okay, so diving in, disclaimer with this ridiculous picture of me is, when I say you throughout this presentation, I'm talking about your brand, not like real you. So we've got Carly on the left, that's Carly the brand. Then we got real Carly looking silly. That's different than the brand. And it gets a little tricky and kind of nuanced, because for us as adult entertainers or sex workers, is the brand is a persona. So it does get a little confusing. You want to make sure that you are thinking of you, the brand, not necessarily you, real you. Okay, so what the hell is branding? It's basically the who of your business. Branding and a brand is different than business. It's not synonymous, but it is integrated. So your business is like your operations, your finance, your admin, your marketing, your branding, everything. So it's not like you can use it interchangeably. However, branding is essentially how you want to guide your potential customers and existing customers, how they will perceive the business offering that you have. So your brand is composed of all these different elements that are used to influence perception. Marketing, on the other hand, is how you build awareness about your brand and your business's values, and you can attract customers in that practical action way. Just really quickly, we're not going to be touching advertising, but I always used to get really, really confused about what's the difference between advertising and marketing and branding. Advertising is simply just a method of marketing. It's one type of marketing. So it's a tactic. It's how you can communicate. So this is going to be a lot of definitions, and they're going to come rapid fire, and they're going to seem like they're overlapping. They do overlap. They do. So don't worry if it starts getting confusing. Okay, brand DNA, which sounds so ridiculous. It sounds like such a buzzword. It kind of is, but it's literally what makes you you. What is your differentiator? What is unique about you? And it is literally within your control. This is what you decide you want your brand to be all about. Whereas a brand identity is how your brand looks and feels and communicates. So that is both visual and verbal, but in a way, a lot of people use identity. When people say brand identity, they're referring to the visual components, like your logo, colors, your fonts, things like that. But your identity is basically, it's like a representation of what your brand DNA is, your values, your purpose, your personality. And those are all terms that we're going to get into and dive in deeper as we go. Okay, what is your brand image? I mean, this is where it starts getting like, huh? So it is literally your reputation. It is how people are perceiving you and understanding your brand, because brand image is out of our control. We can take actions and we can do strategies and things like that to influence how we want our brand image to be. However, it's sort of like you do it, you let it go, and you hope that you did it well, because it's really within your customers and your audience's control of how they're perceiving you. So reputation comes as a result of interactions with you. It's about credibility. And well, the goal is brand loyalty, which is where people stick with you. They are your ATFs, they are your bread and butter. They always buy from you versus someone else, or in addition to someone else, simply because you have established trust with them. They believe that you are going to, quote unquote, fulfill your promises. When I say fulfill your promises, it's like if you are very GFE vibe, you're not going to suddenly come and bend on them. They want to know that what they see is what they get. So we will get into that more. Now, what is brand trust? I'm going to read this one. It is the amount of respect and loyalty they have for you. They believe that you are going to deliver. Okay, and deliver is both conceptual and it's also literal. Like if you say you're going to send a custom, your brand's image is based on whether you actually do that and whether you follow through on these things that your brand is saying, or your marketing is saying, my brand stands for integrity or whatever. So that is brand trust. And we're almost done with the definitions, I promise. Then brand strategy. Okay, and this is where it gets really confusing. Is a brand strategy is you've decided what your identity is, you've decided what your personality is, your values, you've kind of worked on your mission statement and all of that, but it is literally, you've put together this brand, okay? How do you release it to the public? How do you roll it out to your prospective customers and clients? Like, it's a plan. It is a way to execute. It is a way to take action and make sure that your brand is being perceived in the way that you want. And if it's not, then there's something off in your strategy. But we will dive into that a little deeper. Now, the question is, why is branding important? Well, we're going to talk about a lot of things today, and there's a lot of things that you can literally work on and do. There's lots of exercises. Do you have to do all of them? No, of course not. You really, really don't. Like, this is all like in an ideal world, you're going to do this. However, I will say that if you do it all, your potential for success, the opportunities will skyrocket because you have that amazing foundation and you are building out and strategizing and marketing something that's very intentional. That's why I called the webinar Building an Intentional Persona, is that if you do all these things, you have set yourself up for much better success than you do if you're sort of like just throwing things at the wall and seeing if they stick, which is usually the Carly method. I can do it for others. The Carly brand, I'm like, oh, that sounds good. But no, don't do it like that. But yeah, you can get away with not doing all of these. However, first impressions, 10 seconds, often less. So if you haven't put all the thought in the work and built that strategy and decided what you want your brand to be, then people are going to pick up on things that you didn't intend. And maybe that's not exactly what you particularly want to be perceived as or known for. So it takes 5 to 7 brand interactions just before someone will remember your brand. Okay. And you've got, okay, so what are brand interactions, right? Brand interactions are literally any way, any engagement, or like, I guess, being exposed to your business and your brand. So it could be social media. You could have like guest blogged somewhere. Someone could have referred you. They saw your logo. Also, a brand interaction is when they actually interact with you. It's like customer service. They want to know that the way you conduct yourself and run your business is consistent with your brand image, with what you're presenting. So if you present yourself as someone who's very formal, very professional, and then you take weeks to return an email, then it's inconsistent and it doesn't build brand trust. So keep in mind that all of these things, it's holistic. It is literally like you can't get away with just focusing on tweets. Okay, if you want those brand interactions to happen quicker. And obviously, the quicker they happen, the more money you're eventually going to make. So that's just my suggestion. Okay, so that was a lot, I know, and it was kind of boring, but I promise we're getting into like the cool, applicable stuff soon. Okay, so questions. Okay, can we go back to branding? I didn't get the term, is the question that was asked. So branding is the who of your business. Okay, it's like, it's basically your brand is what, there's a very famous quote that says, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So it's not what you say about yourself. That's marketing, that's communications, that's relaying your brand. However, branding is like, is who the business is. Like it's the gut, it's the driving forces, etc. Did that answer branding? Okay. Just as an overview, once we get into like all the nitty gritty, I think it might come together and make and be like you can wrap your head around it. Speak what holistic approach in terms of branding. So basically, with a holistic approach, we are talking about that you can't focus just on one spoke of the wheel. So, it's like a bad metaphor, but you can't really say, okay, my brand is all about being FinDom, let's say I am firm and I'm kind of cruel, but I'm addictive. Okay, so that's like a brand personality, which we will get to. However, holistic is you also have to think about what value are you offering? What does your brand look like? How does it sound? Basically, you can't say, okay, my brand is all pinks and then leave it at that. It's like, well, why? What does that mean? I hope that was like a really great answer. Merrick, thank you for asking. I would be happy to delve into it more at the end if the rest of the presentation leaves it still unanswered for you. How is it possible? The question is, how is it possible to perceive brand reputation? It's not like we can have focus groups here. Jamie, that is absolutely a very good point. And that's something that I think is more, that's a really, really good question. And something I haven't necessarily thought of in that way before. I would say that perception is, you know what? Can I get back to you on that? I really want to think about it. I would say it's more like general vibe that you get if you're getting a lot of people engaging with you, saying like, if you are FinDom and they're treating you as a GFE, then obviously there's a disconnect there in terms of the reputation. Or if for some reason you're getting like, you know, bad press, that's obviously a huge red flag that there's something wrong with your reputation, in which case you might want to be considering a rebrand, but we'll get to that at the very end. So, okay, I think those were the questions. Does anyone else have questions about the terms that we covered? I know that I went through them really quickly. And like I said, it does get more fun, I promise. Well, I mean, for us nerds, it gets fun. So I'm just gonna pop on to the next section because it is a long one. I don't want to keep you guys too long or make your head spin too much. So the first step, okay, because I guess it's really, do you have to do them in this order? Kinda, it's good practice, but it's better to do all the steps, period, than not do them at all. Or it's more important that you take the steps, even if they're in the wrong order, or a different order, I should say, than not consider these components. So your target audience, typically a persona refers to your customer or your clients, the buyer. So if you don't know who you want to speak to, who you want to attract, if you don't know who they are, what they look like, how they communicate, how they, you know, receive information, what their behaviors are, if you don't know that, you don't know how you're going to be able to appeal to them. And these are all the things you're going to want to keep in mind when you're thinking about who is my perfect target customer, okay? And this will be in the branding toolkit. So you will have, I know it's a lot of info, so don't worry, it'll be there. This is basically a template. Like you want to know who Steve is. You want to know what's important to them. You want to know what prevents him from purchasing and also what encourages him. What is a tipping point for him to purchase? Someone in the run-through last night made a fabulous recommendation that apps are a good way to indicate how to reach someone. Because if someone that you want to target is really big into music, like let's say that your fan base is really music oriented, then maybe make a Spotify playlist and add that to your links. You know, appeal to your customers and your audience. If you try to appeal to everyone, you will appeal to no one. Okay, you can't, it's not good to go wide. It's not good to be like, oh, I'm appealing to anyone who likes porn or anyone who likes girl content. It is because that's really wide. And you're not really going to speak to those individuals, those target prospective customers, in a way that they're going to hear and listen to and act upon. Okay, so really, the more narrow you can go It feels like you're losing a lot of potential customers. However, they are going to be better and quality customers simply, and usually they're going to have more brand loyalty simply because they are looking for someone exactly like you with your exact service, your exact product. So, okay, then after you've researched who you want to speak to, you also have to keep in mind who is out there already. And when I say competitor analysis, I'm not saying this in a mean-spirited way. It is absolutely not. And it is absolutely not to copy or plagiarize in any fashion. The reasons why we do competitor analyses is because you have to know what you like. You have to know what you don't like. You have to know what's already out there. Because if it's already out there, then that audience is already captured. Yeah, you could compete with them and try to take away that audience, which, I mean, just bad ethics, bad business. But more importantly, it is someone's already doing it. So by looking and seeing what is already out there, you can see what isn't out there, what doesn't exist already. And from there, you can see what opportunities there may be for untapped people and markets. Okay, it could be that there is absolutely no one who is a BBW, who is a Pacific Islander doing heavy metal porn. You know, that's not going to be a very wide target audience, but oh my God, are they going to be loyal to you? They are looking for exactly what you're offering. So you definitely want to see what is there, find inspiration from your collaborators and peers, but you also, it's really good because you get to get a sense of pricing norms and standards, what market rates are. And then finally, as you're doing your research, you will begin to start thinking about like, ooh, that's an SEO keyword I could use. Search engine optimization is, you know, if everyone is going after GFE, then it's like, it's going to be really, really hard to get a website or my content to rank for GFE. So why don't I do something that is completely different, is more specific? So having that like essential lay of the land, it's like just getting a ballpark gauge of what's going on out there. So we are at a question stage again. I'm seeing chats, I'm seeing Q&A. Is it possible to have subcategories to your customers? I'm an SSBBW who mainly covers GFE, but I also do inflatable pool toy porn as well, which is very niche. Sadie, yes, that is very niche, and I commend you for committing to it. However, the tricky thing that is a little bit more advanced, and we're not going to get into it, but it's brand architecture, which is where you have your main brand, and then you have like sub-brands almost. However, that umbrella brand, it has to trickle down and be consistent no matter what your sub-brands are. So when I say brand, it's like Coca-Cola, sub-brands, Diet Coke, Coke Zero, their portfolio of like waters and stuff. I don't know. But the idea is that all those elements that define Coca-Cola are still consistent for Diet Coke. It's just, it has its own specific identity almost. So the values, the purpose, all of that the same. The look, the feel, the spoken, the written might be a little different for a Diet Coke or for an inflatable pool toy porn, which is really difficult to say, Sadie. Okay, so there are a bunch of chats. These are all really, really, really good points that I'm seeing. I'm not going to read them all out, but I really appreciate everyone sharing your experience and knowledge and expertise in the chat. Please continue to do so. I may not see it, but that's just because I'm like, okay. We have another question from Nina, which is, I'm a full service sex worker who does both GFE and kink as a pro submissive. Be able to cater to both markets, but hear your advice on the matter. My GFE, not into BDSM, BDSM, not into GFE alone. That's a really interesting question and a challenge that, no joke, it is a challenge. I mean, it's kind of like, do you do two personas, or do you somehow merge the two and find an umbrella identity or, DNA that can fall into those two categories as like sub-brands? It's really challenging. I would encourage you to do some of the exercises that we talk about, Nina, and then like create a Venn diagram, like the circles that overlap. See what the commonalities are between your GFE clients and your fetish clients. See where you can find those common denominators, where they overlap, and what the qualities are for those people who are in that sort of both category. And the more you can define what the qualities and identities and behaviors of those overlap individuals, I think that is going to help guide your brand development for the umbrella brands. I hope that answers it. I don't want to go too in depth with very custom, personal and unique situations. However, I'm happy to talk with you afterwards, of course. Okay, so chats. Girl Can Dream, these are amazing. Cassie, you are gorgeous, girly. I concur. Okay, we've got one more. Okay, I'm going to touch that question at another break. But so the next section, brand heart and positioning. This is where we start getting into the nitty-gritty and decision making. Okay, so get your notebooks, take notes. These are the important things. Now, your brand heart, it's your why. It's your business's why. It is your brand's why. Why do you do this? And it has to, honestly, obviously, it's money. However, there's a quote coming up. I'll explain that. So 1 second on the beyond money thing. So you have to determine your purpose. So why do you exist? What solution are you offering to your customer's problem that they need to solve? Problem being they need to get laid, problem being they want content, etc. What is the vision for your brand? Like when your brand, your product, your service, your offering, when that solves the problem, that becomes like the future, right? So how does that future look? What do you want to solve? What problem, like what defines your solution? How is your service going to achieve and get you to that place where the future is looking like you want it to? What is your business here to do? It's a mission. So definitely you want a mission statement. And I recommend you write that at the very, 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 very end. Because it's really tough to get a bird's eye view if you don't get into the nitty gritty. And the mission statement is a lot, it becomes a little bit more clear after you've decided all the different other components that go into a big brand. And then most importantly, like your values. Are you here to speak your mind? Are you here to be a supportive ear? Like, what are your morals and values of the brand? What drives and guides the brand's actions and behaviors. Okay, so this gets into the money thing. Okay, so I'm going to read it verbatim, sorry. Your brand plays a role in the life of your customers. It has value, impacts their lives. Therefore, it serves a purpose beyond money. Identify, like hone in, decide what that impact is going to be. Identify what role your service, your brand, your business, your offering offers them. Use that role and purpose for the motivation driving your marketing, driving your brand development, and driving your business. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I mean, these get very wordy, but okay, so what is positioning? Positioning, it's basically like what makes you different? What makes you you? And I cannot tell you enough, all those things that you think are not like special enough or like important or worthy enough of using in your brand, I guarantee you that is what makes you different. That is what your unique selling proposition is. You've done the competitor analysis, so you know what's not out there. Okay, so hit them with the things that are really unique to you. I guarantee it will make all the difference. Okay, and lean into your quirks. Okay, and don't be afraid to be different. Don't be afraid. Literally, I would say, as a general rule, with few exceptions, if you see someone successfully doing something, do the exact opposite. Okay, because not in terms of like execution, but in terms of like the uniqueness of it, because it's not, I mean, there's no point in trying to do the same thing as others are doing, because it's already being done, and it's already, I'm sure, being done successfully by a number. So it's not like you're going to be able to come in and say, hey, I'm going to do the exact same thing as so-and-so, and I'll get the same success. It's like, well, first of all, you don't know what success that person is experiencing. It's all optics. However, you do know that people are already developing a relationship with that brand that's in existence. So you're already behind the 8 ball in a way. So if you do something totally different and totally unique to you, you will attract people, because successful positioning rejects conformity. Okay, basically it's like, do something totally different. You need people to be instinctively, I mean, it says here, the human brain instinctively looks for things that are different, unexpected. Okay, so when you contrast what's already out there, you're going to attract people, because they're going to be like, whoa, okay, I picked up, that's different. Let me look into that. That's a great brand interaction. So that is what positioning is. Okay, now, when you've got your position in place, you want to move on to, what is my brand's personality? Let's get in a little more into the nitty gritty. What is the personality? How does my brand communicate? Now, just a set of human characteristics, okay, which is like, it's redundant for us, because most of the people on this call, I would imagine, are persona, sex workers. So you have your personality, and those human characteristics are just automatically a persona. So, but for brand personalities, you want to know, it's how your values, your differentiators, your vision, your marketing, how does all of that encapsulate the brand? Okay, it's how it goes out. Okay, it's how you're trying to influence. So there are a number of exercises that I do recommend. One of them is really helpful, and you can just jot down, don't censor yourself, don't judge yourself, allow yourself to just put anything down. You can cross it off afterwards, but it is isn't list. And remember, again, this is your brand. This is not you. Okay, so Carly, the brand, is a cheerleader, motivator. She isn't negative. She is self-deprecating because I'm a goober, and not egotistical. I am hopeful for the future, but Carly, the brand, is not jaded, which I will tell you, real Carly, jaded as fuck. So you want to know who you are, who you aren't. And that's a great way of doing it, isn't list. Another one is a word cloud. Have people done word clouds, I imagine? It's basically just like a creative brainstorming exercise where you write down any words that just cross your mind that you feel could be attached or involved with your brand's DNA, your brand personality, your brand voice, all of that. So this was actually a word cloud for our client, B. York, whose website came out today. Go check it out. It's amazing. She's so stunningly photogenic. And she is also awkward, sultry, naughty, seductive, calming. And all of these things together make up a personality. So seeing them all at once, putting them all down there, I literally just Googled word cloud generator, free all over the place. So just pop in your list of words into one of those and you'll get a pretty word cloud and you can put it in your brand manual. Now, brand voice, what is that? It's literally how you express your brand personality. It's how you communicate it. So examples of a brand personality, like Tiffany's, all about elegance, all about luxury. So it speaks and writes and communicates in that fashion. Whereas Nike, their brand identity, their brand values are all about being inspiring and motivating and all of that. So they come across as powerful and inspiring. Whereas something like Harley Davidson, rugged, strong, raw, masculine, all of that. So that is your brand voice. Now, your brand voice is composed of both visual and verbal components. So these are things that, like I said in the beginning, can you get away with not thinking about all this? Obviously. But if you do, consistent. So that's the goal with branding, is you want to be consistent. Every time a customer interacts with your brand, you want them to know what to expect. And because of that expectance and the consistency, people are more likely to trust you, your reputation will be better, they'll perceive you as credible, and you'll have loyalty and sales. Okay, so visual communications, composed of all these different things. Like, are you a gift person? I'm a gift person. I'm not an emoji person. I can't keep up with the emojis and stickers, but I do like gifts. Are you typically doing candid type pictures, or do you exclusively feature pro photography? Imagery, are you always using cartoons? Are you always featuring food pictures? Do you have a style trademark? Like, again, I love Mean Girls. Wednesdays, we wear pink. Is that part of your brand? Is that you wear pink? Or that you have a scarf or a flare of some sort? Think about those things that you can add to your brand's voice and communications so that people know what to expect. They like it, they latch onto it. It's what they're looking for. How do you speak verbally? Okay, whether that's speaking or whether it's writing. Is it very formal versus casual? Do you use a lot of slangs or abbreviation? Punctuation in caps. We have a client who writes in all caps. We also have clients who are really big on different kinds of punctuation. We have a client who's really big on grammar. So that all comes into play when you're deciding your voice, okay? Now, looks like we do have some questions here. Chat. Yes. Okay. Anonymous has asked, they have longevity in camming. However, they haven't felt like they've got a foundation to their brand, their niche, their target audience. Absolutely. It is always worth it to work on your branding. Even if you have an established brand, it's not a big deal. It's great exercise. You just get to improve and continue developing that consistency. So it doesn't matter if you haven't done it. A lot of clients come to us and they have like a fair amount of success and they've really established themselves, but maybe it's like, it's time for a check-in. Maybe it's time just to, review all the elements, make sure that you're targeting the people you want to. This is all just because there are only 24 hours in a day. So there's only so much you can do. And to maximize each of your efforts, obviously the whole saying, you want to work smarter, not harder. Smarter is putting in the work in terms of being like, yep, that's exactly how I speak. That is exactly who I want my target customer to be. And if you have elements of other interests, you can decide whether those fold into your brand as a cammer, or maybe you keep it separate, or maybe it's just an interest, a hobby, or maybe it's a defining characteristic of your personality. So take all of this into consideration when you're building out your brand's DNA. Okay, well then we will pop on to stuff that is more like actionable and, a little more fun. So names, taglines. So names, do your research. Most people here probably already have a name. If you don't, then I encourage you strongly, the more research you can do, just in general as you're developing a brand, but specifically with naming, because the last thing you want is to choose a name and half of the social platforms is already taken, or the domain has bad SEO on it from someone who originally had that domain and got rid of it. That's in our SEO webinar. I encourage you to check it out. Basically, you inherit any bad SEO if you pick up a domain that's already been used. But more importantly, you don't want to take the same name as someone else. You want to be unique. Okay, so do your research. Do your research. There are all sorts of ways of naming yourself. So the types of names, and these are just examples, obviously be as creative as you want or don't want, but you could have something that's totally made up. Carly David has no logic behind it. Absolutely none. It's totally made up. And then we've also got like an homage to an idea, like Little Puck is a reference to Midsummer Night's Dream. You could have literal, like our featured project manager, Cassie Cummings. That plays off of what her service is. You could combine words like bad kitty, or you could just play around with it, make it more creative and unusual by changing the spelling. So bad kitty is also a spelling change, but like MX told me as opposed to mistress. Taglines. What is a tagline? Now, really important is that I personally, for sex worker personas and brands, I would say a tagline is not necessary. Is it cool? Does it help? Absolutely. But I think it's more important to have one for internal reference necessarily than in your marketing messaging. Okay, because we always get stuck. Like this business is so tough. It's a grind. It's exhausting. It's so complicated and so much work that often we get burnt out or we just get confused and lost. And we're like, I have been writing captions for 6 hours. I don't even know who I am anymore. So if you have a tagline, that's a really easy way to just check in with yourself and be like, oh yeah, that's my brand. In a phrase. So you could have a metaphor as a tagline, your new favorite body pillow, or, the dirtiest girl in the world. I think it's Sasha Grey, Sophia Grey, I don't remember. You could describe what you do, which is Cactus Cutie is the princess of pea porn. You could capture an attitude, again, bad kitty, badass with a good ass. Highlight your benefits. So Lexi Luna's old tagline was the best fake boobs in the biz. She is now the gentleman's porn star. So that's a refresh. We'll get to that. And I couldn't think of any slogans or taglines that are in the adult industry specific, but something that it would be an example is the quicker picker upper, tastes great, less filling. Something like that. So play around with taglines. They're really hard. They're really hard and they can evolve, which is why it's good to have it for yourself because it's like a baseline. It's like a checking in, being like, yep, that's who I am. Okay, once you have your name, your tagline, that's like top line. That's like the coat, the outfit. You have your look and visual style. So what is that made up of? It is made up of color palettes. So, and don't worry, I do provide this graphic, this photo with the wheel of color emotions and psychology in the toolkit. So you will have reference to this, but it's basically like using how do colors influence people? How do they make people feel? It is not a coincidence that all the financial brands are blue. It's because blue is supposed to imply good service, structure, trustworthiness. So you look, they're all blue. Whereas something like pink, like a magenta, really gets like the fires going. So think about all of this when you decide your color palettes, okay? Then you've got lettering. Like, what's the difference between fonts and typography? Fonts are the style of the text. Typography is like the specifics, like what version of that font family. So you've got bold versus thin. Fonts, serif has like those little feet to it. And they sort of convey a little bit more of like elegance and formality. Handwriting is more fun or more luxury, display. You can just go the wide gamut. Have fun with fonts, but don't get too crazy. Okay, you don't want more than like 3 fonts in general. Just because it hits people over the head, they can't focus and, you know, they need some guidance. What is a logo? Okay, because, and why would you need one? Okay, a lot of people think it's superfluous or unnecessary. Yeah, you could do without one, but a logo is a design asset. It's an image, a mark that encapsulates everything that you've been trying to convey about your brand. So why is it important? Because of those touch points and the 10-second attention span is that if they see it, they're going to know it. And that's the goal. Like when you see those Chanel C's, you think, ooh, Chanel. If you see the swoosh from Nike, you're like, okay, yeah, just do it. Just do it. It's a tagline. So logos are important. It marks your identity. It's like a really fast, like it's speed dating in a way for new customers. You are distinguished, you can use it in all your marketing, and people get attached to it. They're like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's got X, Y, and Z. That is the Carly brand. Okay, there are different versions of logos. Okay, you could have a word mark, which is just your name, it's lettering, but it's cool. You could have an emblem that people typically use on like, oh, I mean, a logo is really important for content that you have a watermark, but you want to make sure it represents your brand in visual. So you've got monogram, like Louis Vuitton has the two letters as a monogram. It could be completely abstract. It could be an icon like Siri Doll's Peach. It could be a mascot. I couldn't think of any logos that are in adult that are mascots. So that's the Wendy's mascot logo. Or it could be a combination. So those are your logos. Now, we're going to move on to brand manuals. What is a brand manual? Why is it important? What goes into it? Okay, so this is what goes into it. A brand manual, again, do you have to do it? No. Are you going to be glad you did if you do? Yeah, because it just basically is your little Bible that lists documents, presents in a little booklet that you create that is everything that you have decided and determined about your brand. This will be included in the toolkit as well. But why are they important? Why would you want to do it? It's because when you are in doubt, you can always go back to it. You're like, yep, that is my backbone. Those are my bones. That is who I am. And you can be consistent. Okay, because you want to use those colors consistently. You want to use the same fonts. You want to use the same style imagery. You can share these brand manuals with external people if you want. You can share with designers. Designers, it's really helpful if you have a brand manual, like if you are building a website, if you're doing graphics, photographers usually will take a look at a brand manual. But basically, it's like, this is who I am. It's a guidebook. It is something that I can reference both internally or share externally. Now, when you've got your brand, as you're chugging along, you're executing your strategy, the question is, you're not happy with it, or something's not right. The question is, do you refresh your brand or do you overhaul your brand? A brand refresh is just like you grew up a little, either you have matured as a persona, matured as a business, or the world has evolved and you have to modernize your image. So the idea is that it's consistent values, it's consistent personality, but you just sort of give it a little facelift. So example, Lexi Luna just went through a refresh from Best Fake Boobs in the Biz to the Gentleman's Porn Star. Okay, and she adjusted her strategy to support this more modern version, but her DNA, her personality, all of that the same, just a grown-up version. Whereas a rebrand, you're basically like scrapping most of it, starting fresh. Now, why would you do a rebrand? Okay, and the answer is not that you're bored. It's not that you've kind of outgrown your brand. I would say, well, outgrown is, we're going to pause that for a second, but you're just, you want a little boost to it. Then you want to refresh. You just want a facelift. Rebranding is when things are screwed up, like the existing strategy just not working. It could be that you got into kind of some bad PR. You got reputation management issues. In that case, sometimes it is wise to rebrand versus refresh, because if there's a reputation issue, then that goes to the most foundation of your branding, okay? Because those values are now into question. So do you have to rebrand if you have bad press? Absolutely not. I actually say stick it out, but maybe review how you're doing things. You might want to rebrand if you have safety or discretion issues. Okay, if you change your niche or market, like it could be that you go from camming to in-person. in which case you're like, I don't want to do it under the same name, the same brand, the same umbrella. I want to do it differently. You do it because the current brand is limiting, as in like, you started when you were very young, you've outgrown it, you've matured, you're a different person than you normally were at, like, let's say 20 versus 30. It's limited. Or for instance, you are on one specific platform, like you stream on one site, and maybe your target audience is a little bit more hanging out on another site. So you're limited with the branding you have because it was tailored to specific audiences. You could change your roles. Like, Carly was not my sex worker name. I changed my persona and my brand because I wanted them separate. Or it could be that you retired, you want to come back, but you want to start from scratch. Those are the reasons to rebrand. Being bored, being like, oh, I don't like that color. That's a refresh. Okay, top 10 tips, and then we're done. Okay, so know your customer. Know your customer. You got to study what is out there. Like, overall, the more research you do in general, the better off you're going to be. Study the competition for the reasons, take inspiration, find what's new. Have a purpose beyond money. Okay, solve that problem that the customer has. Be different. Like, that's probably the biggest one I could emphasize, is be unique. Have a personality, a voice, have a consistent brand identity style. Keep that consistency through all your marketing, all your communications, your social media, your streams, your content, your booking process, everything. It is a good idea to create a brand manual. Don't be too quick to rebrand. But the biggest thing, just commit. Go big. Own it. Because it literally is when we go halfway or half-ass something that it doesn't work. You can't be confident in it. So if you commit to your brand, trust me, it will be perceived in a much more positive fashion because you believe in it. So a customer will be like, oh, I should believe in it. So the bigger you go, the more you commit, the more unique you are, and the more different you find yourself, the better off you are going to be for opportunities for success. Okay, so this is the link to the mini toolkit. I will put it in the chat here as well. We are psgroups.com. I think that's our website. Worksheets. There we go. So questions here. I have a stalker. He has followed me from multiple rebrands. Advice. So out of my wheelhouse, I'm afraid, Catherine. I've had a stalker. I was doxxed. It's awful. I apologize. And I'm so sorry that I can't offer good advice. I would say lawyer, and say it, forget it, write it, regret it. Like, don't put anything in writing and capture everything. But that's really, like, I'm not an attorney. Don't ask someone who is like qualified to answer that question, I would say. Okay, I put too much real me into my online persona. Would a rebrand be better than a refresh? I don't know. I think I would do some brainstorming, Rigo. I would say that you would want to define what your current branding is, what you want it to be. If it's worlds different, then yeah, maybe rebrand. But rebranding is usually a last resort. Like, I would not advocate for a lot of rebranding because, it's an overhaul. And you're going to lose all that work you've done to establish your brand equity and trust. So I would say weigh out the pros and cons. see what is resonating with you more after you get all those brand elements down on paper. You look at it, you do a Pinterest mood board maybe, and you're like, okay, I really feel strongly that I don't need to rebrand, but here are the ways I can refresh the things that aren't working. What was number 10? 10, go big or go home, commit. Be proud and confident in your choices. Okay. How does one study competition in terms of cities? Absolutely. So they're asking Anonymous, saying that different geographic markets are very, very different. Yes, totally. That's why you need to go down your rabbit holes. You need to reference ad platforms. You need to reference social media. I would say reference news sources. See what are the traits of, a New York City versus a Chicago. So that all comes under your research. And I would say that it is also just sort of, looking at the common denominators, so to speak. If everyone in the Midwest is wearing pink, then you can guess that pink's probably a very attractive, appealing color. Or maybe you wear a different shade of pink, so to speak. But picking up on the things that are jumping out to you that a lot of people are doing, those are trends. So picking up on what is unique about New York versus San Francisco audiences. This is also where you do your target customer profile. Is if they are a person who is very New York City based and very New Yorker versus LA's, for instance, then you want to look at what those qualities are, what the behaviors are that are unique to that geographic market. Question, do we offer brand consultations? Yes. Absolutely, we do. We're actually, I wasn't even going to say this because it hasn't been finished yet, but we're in development. We offer boot camps. We have a whole team of brand strategists who are current retired sex workers who are just so good at what they do. And I just sit and let them do their thing because they're so amazing. But they will review your brand with you. They will help you with the strategy. They'll go into identity, all of that. But we are developing a more intensive and comprehensive option, which is 12 meetings. It's like a private college course almost, in which it literally covers everything soup to nuts. We're going to have one track for full service and one track that is being developed exclusively for content creators. So that will be launching, I believe, in September, target date. Definitely feel free to get in touch. That's our contact info if you're interested in learning more about our services. Okay, so let me check the chat before. Oh, I'm so glad that everyone is putting their information in here. Okay, so Lord Berkshire has asked, I'm confused when attracting your target audience. Sometimes with your customer desires. Basically, so the question is, are you trying to develop your brand exclusively for your target audience, or are you developing the brand that you want and then targeting an audience based on that? It's like chicken or the egg almost. So you want to ideally know who you want to attract, who are those people, those qualities, those customers, and almost reverse engineer. Like you say, okay, that's so-and-so, that's Steve. How does Steve receive information? So you reverse engineer, you're like, Steve is always on Instagram. Maybe I should be on Instagram. Okay, but then you also want to meet in the middle with the identity, the values, the personality, the voice, all of that you want. Okay, you don't build a brand for Steve. Steve informs how you appeal to him, but your identity, your DNA is all you. So you want to, like Lord Berkshire says, there's a ruler. If your brand were the ruler, you want to meet in the middle. You want to use the information about that target audience persona to inform your marketing and your brand strategy. However, you don't want to build something that like you have no attachment to. That's not your purpose. You're not going to give a shit. So, Lord Berkshire, did that, I hope, answer that question? Okay. Okay, they do have, okay. I've been using my name for 20 years. I don't know about trademark. I would have to look into that a little bit more. If it's not taken, because trademarks are typically, you know what? I'm going to sound like a moron here, giving information I'm not totally sure about. If you can afford to trademark your name and you plan on being in the industry for the long haul, and you have done the work, research, you want that name, then yeah, absolutely, it's a good idea to trademark it. Is it going to really mess with you if it's already trademarked? I mean, they could say it's trademark infringement. I would ask a lawyer, honestly. Sorry about that. But if your name is your name, it's probably not a problem if you've been using your name for 20 years. How to get info about your customers. Sadie, I actually don't know because I did it very late last night. But in the toolkit, basically when you're creating a customer profile, it's not always based on quantitative numbers and data. It could be, I really like guys who are really into anime. Okay, in which case you reverse engineer. How do you appeal? How do you talk to someone who likes anime? And you also build your identity, your personality, your values so that that is appealing to that person. Does that make sense? I hope. I've got chat open and Q&A open. Thank you, Matt Slayer. Yes, absolutely. You want trademark. Thanks, Sadie. Cool. Okay. Competition asker here. I'm asking, if your brand works great in San Francisco but does not in NYC, how do you study competition to adapt to the new city? I would say just Google, rabbit hole, like just have fun with it. Don't, just get a sense, like immerse yourself in who are the people who are in your city and what are the commonalities. But it's really observation. It's really observation because frankly, we don't have the stats that mainstream marketing avenues and brands do. We don't have access to all that. So it's more about observation, I would say. Yeah. Okay, Sadie said I started in full service, name myself, so no one thought I was a skinny. Porn star name, should I be refreshing? That is, again, Sadie is asking, is it okay to keep two names based on the niche and the sector that she's focusing on, that she's working on? That is all of this. Every single thing that I've discussed is totally your call. If you really are attached to two names, then yeah, keep those two names. Just refine, figure out why they should fall under Sadie, you know, like real Sadie. Why would your business, overarching business, whether it be full service porn, it still falls under an umbrella of sorts because you have consistent values. So yeah, I would say it is exclusively your call. It is your executive decision. Like I said, there are tons of things you can do. And the thing is, what really separates success is not knowing what to do. It's actually doing it. Like there is a huge difference with success in terms of knowing what to do, because it's not a matter of intelligence or education or anything like that. It's literally just action, because everyone knows like it's important to have a brand, okay? But not everyone actually does it and takes all the steps and really develops a very nuanced and complex and thoughtful, intentional persona. So if you do that, you're just giving yourself a boost and you're giving yourself more opportunities to succeed, because you don't have to think about what consistency is in terms of your voice. You already know it. So you can just bang that out. You can work hard, work smarter, not harder. Carly's working harder right now. God. Okay. Are there any other questions? I don't even know what time it is. Wow. Okay. So I hope you guys found this helpful. It's the first time I've done it, so I'm really glad that you humored me. Obviously, please get in touch. Let us know how you go when you're developing all of this. I know it's a lot, and I know you're all absolutely capable of doing all of this. It's not a matter of like talent. It's just a matter of like discipline and doing it. So thank you everyone for the support. And yes, absolutely, we will be recording this, posting this. Go download the toolkit. Don't tell me if it doesn't download. I can't handle it today. But yeah, so I'm Carly, PS Group, and we will see you next time. Bye, guys. Thank you again.